Hello, free enterprise heads and leapfrogs out there. A very pleasant good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on your locale. I'm Muppets in Space, and this is the Lunar Path. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're taking community spotlight to the next level. There are literally thousands of people who have taken to this randomizer and this community in general. Starting with an idea and a dream, and around it have gathered some of the most interesting, dynamic, and talented people that I have ever had the pleasure of interacting with over the ones and zeros. And behind each of these screen names that I see scrolling by through here is a community member, runner, and human being. And today we get to take a closer look at one of those community members. And you all now have the opportunity to ask questions in real time. And I want to impress upon you that you should all feel free to ask questions during this interview. And if I do not select your question to answer, or if Invenerable doesn't select your question to answer, it is no way a reflection of the opinion of the question or the value inherently. It may be simply that we missed the question or we've moved on. Please ask away. But now I am joined by the winner of the most recent Free Enterprise tournament, one of the founding Free Enterprise community members, and one of the first of them who I had the pleasure of interacting with in real time, Invenerable. Welcome.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
How you doing, Invenerable? What you been up to recently?
Yeah, I mean, social distancing has been a thing, and
It has.
I finally decided to brave the masses and go to a local park. And it's hot down south. It's hot and humid, and I have hair that looks like a hedge wizard, not like a wizard of the hedges, but like I'm a wizard who has been trapped in a hedge for a while.
Oh,
And
okay.
I have I've got to do something about it. So
You
it, the
gotta have the weed whacker out there.
exactly.
Gotta prime up the 2-cycle gas for that one. Yeah, my fiance actually cut my hair. We finally sucked it up and did it, and you know what? It turned out pretty good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I had a
10 out of
friend
10 with you again. Yeah.
who had his wife cut the hair, and after it was done, he then went to the barber and got everything fixed
Oh yeah,
after.
oh
So
yeah.
I'm glad it worked out for you, though.
It's a leap of faith. It is an
Yeah.
absolute leap of faith and a test of your love right there. So welcome to this. This is a wonderful opportunity, and we of course have a plethora of questions. And the first one is of course from Margaret Ann. Which character would you like to cut your hair the most?
Uh, Probably Edge. I feel like the fact that he is ambidextrous with blades means that
Ooh,
he would probably have the precision necessary to do a good job.
that's
Uh,
true.
I would definitely not let anyone who can equip an Avenger do it, just in case they pick up the wrong tool and things go straight to heck. So definitely no Cecil, no Kane.
Well,
Let
and they
let's
just
stick with
wouldn't
some
know when to
precision.
stop, right? They would just keep
Exactly.
going and going and going until you got like some weird version of a flat top.
Or I'm missing, it takes so much off the top that you have exposed gray matter, and that's no good either.
Yeah, well, yeah. Don't worry about that. So, gaming. I want to do something a little unorthodox here. I feel like it's time to go into the Wayback Machine here. Let's go all the way back to a time when Invenerable picked up his first controller. You played the game, and suddenly the world of video gaming was opened up in your head and your heart. What was the game that started it all?
Honestly, it was one of two games. It was either the combo cart Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, or it was the first Legend of Zelda on the NES.
Okay.
I was absolutely horrible at Super Mario Brothers. My older brother could beat it in like 20 minutes while we were waiting for the school bus to come in the morning. But I was pretty good at Zelda 1 until somehow he and his friends got catch up in the cartridge. I never really found out the real details on that.
Oh, Zelda 1, huh?
Oh yeah, it was so weird. Like Zelda 1 as a kid, I was so good at. I could beat both quests. As an adult, I'm garbage at it. But Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, complete opposite. Could not get anywhere as a kid. As an adult, I'm like, oh, it's like this is fun.
See, the thing is that I've never been able to do anything in Z2, kid or otherwise. Just every incarnation of me has always failed at Z2, but Z1, I totally get, because that was a big part of my childhood too. And what was it about Z1 that got you when you were a kid? Like, you played that game and you're rolling around the overworld with your sword and your shield. Like what was it about that game specifically that made you go, this is something that I could spend my time doing?
I mean, swords were just cool as a kid anyway. Like another thing I remember from my childhood, we lived at the end of the power lines. Cable lines didn't run there. We had satellite for like half a year, and then the family decided they didn't want to pay for it. So we kind of like I grew up on a lot of movies, specifically ones that again older siblings enjoyed. So there were a lot of really like campy 80s ninja movies that came out, and so bladed weapons, just in general, were highly entertaining to me from very early in childhood.
Okay.
And, throwing fireballs is nice and all, but, swinging your little magical sword, your silver sword around, white sword, and yeah, not, uh, was, it was enjoyable. And
Yeah.
also, I dare say that the cartoons had an impact on it as well. The old Super Mario Brothers Super Show, the
Oh wow.
"Excuse me,
Oh
princess," all that
wow,
stuff.
what a reference.
Yeah, like you get the VHSs at your country school book
Mhm.
fairs, and again, without real cable or much channel on anything else, this was entertainment. So I had the Nintendo and the other forms of entertainment like intertwined from a very early age.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm like, God, you talking about the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, and boy, that just took me all the way back, man. Like, what a reference. I remember that being a huge part of the integration, and that's an interesting thing that you bring up too, is that like television and video gaming became sort of like intertwined in with each other. Like, is there anything specific that you can like bring to your head from like kind of midway through your adolescence that kind of is exemplary of that specific thing too?
I mean, if we're going to teenage years, the one of the first things, we'll go kind of like the early end of it. Let's go to middle school, where in sixth grade, Final Fantasy VI, or as it was called here, Final Fantasy III, came out. Another game near and dear to my heart. And I remember even just initially being aware that there was any other student on the planet who played video games. Like, even after I moved to a relatively larger metropolitan area, it was still kind of considered like a rather geeky pastime. So even
Sure.
learning that there were other people who were interested in RPGs when I'd spent the last few years frantically trying to rent every single one that was in the pages of Nintendo Power, even some, rarer ones like I rented Paladin's Quest for a few weekends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a hard row to hoe. But just I remember finally encountering other people who had interest in these games and having that level of interaction and completely geeking out over it. Probably being a little overbearing. I mean, you think I'm bad now? Catch me when I'm 12 years old. Uh, and just actually having someone else to talk about these games in the era really before we had, Discord, before we had Twitter, before even I knew what IRC was, just to finally be able to interact with someone and share that love of a game like that was pretty fun.
So there's kind of a social aspect to this that you connected to, is what I'm hearing there too, is that it's not just about the solo experience, it's also about sharing the experience, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to jump the gun on it, but I think that we'll be able to weave in a lot of the free enterprise situation to that
Oh,
as
of
well.
course, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah. I know
of
you have
course.
your plot, your timeline, and
I mean, it's
that's
free form. It's free
yeah.
form. It's whatever. Yeah. So, what do you look for in a game now, though? Now, fast forward all the way to your adulthood out of the
Well,
house.
it's kind of funny because towards the end of my teenage years, when there were a whole bunch of really great PlayStation 1 RPGs out, I got to the point where I really didn't like doing anything without a player's guide because, with having to study and do all that, I didn't want to play an 80, 100, 120-hour game, find out I missed some content, and then have to replay it yet again. Um, so throughout like later teenage years and early 20s, I was very big on hand holding and
Hmm.
doing things that way, enjoying the game for the story, but missing out on quite a bit of gameplay because I'm like, no, I refuse to do this twice. Funny thing is that now, as an old man in my 30s, I actually prefer having that experience of the gameplay more than the story. Like if I want a really good story, I'll probably go read a book, But if I'm playing a video game, I want there to be good mechanics that I can explore, enjoy, experiment with,
Right.
and have that entire other side of gameplay. So it's interesting to see how much that's kind of flipped over the last 15 to 20 years, in fact, for
So
me
you're
personally.
so you're more interested in like the fledgling experience of a game rather than the whole hand holding is what I just heard there, which is that's really interesting. Like the blind aspect of playing a game. Is there a specific part about a game as you're playing it for the first time now that can really hook you? Like, is it the story, battle elements, the interactivity? What are we looking for in a first playthrough of a game?
Definitely engaging gameplay that either, even if it tests me on something as, as rudimentary as reflexes, if it's something that makes me think about strategy and interaction, like that's one reason why I'm a pretty big fan of roguelikes. Just that kind, and even modern RPGs, some games will have mechanics that absolutely enthrall me, they hook me, I want to keep going. Other ones, if they're a little more basic, I'm like, that's fine and all. I'm sure it's there for someone, but I really crave that kind of thing that, just
Mm-hmm.
make me be cerebral with it.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say you're somebody who enjoys gaming with other people more than you like gaming by yourself?
It entirely depends on the game. I definitely do enjoy party game style things. For a good decade there, I was a pretty
Mhm.
dedicated first person shooter primarily. Now I'm a little more, like the solo strategy kind of thing. But party games, I will, if we are in person, I will not turn down anyone at a round or two of Smash Brothers. Uh, I would love to find some people, perhaps to some night play some golf with your friends or duck game. All these little, like very quick, fast paced, party games. I love those too. I love that enjoyment of games with friends. But I also love the solo, thoughtful, let's dig down into these mechanics experiences.
Yeah. Um, Somebody brought up the idea of roguelikes. I know that you have slayed the Spire once or twice. I'm super hardcore addicted to it too. Um, are roguelikes a thing that interest you in an overarching way as far as the interactivity of gameplay, like a lighter sort of thing? Or do you find yourself more gravitating towards story based things?
It depends on the individual game. Overall, I definitely like roguelikes. Like, yeah, early 20s, I ascended a few times in NetHack, really dove into that and learned a lot of the mechanics in it. Then, of course, Slay the Spire, like you mentioned, is fantastic.
So good.
Played Dicey Dungeons a lot last year until
Oh
I
yeah.
cleared
Yeah.
nearly everything but one on that. Um, and yeah, I definitely say I lean far more towards mechanics than story at this point. If someone does tell me a game has a great story, I would be more inclined at this point in my life to read a let's play of it, uh, do something like that rather than be like, "Oh, you need to go sit through and read all 120 hours of dialogue here." I'm like, "That's nice and all, but I think I've lost a little bit of my attention span in my old age too.
Right.
Like, I need you to hook me, and I need you to dig those claws in and get me."
Okay. So let's take this a step further now. Playing a randomizer. How did that get to be a thing? Like, what was the first randomizer you ever played?
The first one I played was the Link to the Past randomizer, actually.
Okay.
Initially, when I started watching things on Twitch, I first came over and started watching Twitch regularly for. I saw someone in chat asked about FTL Faster Than Light.
Mm-hmm.
I've cleared that on hard mode every ship. Love
Oh yeah,
that game, like over
it's so
500 hours in it.
oh,
Uh,
it's so good.
and after I had played enough of my own to have a good, like, moderate level understanding, I started watching a few streamers on Twitch to really get into the nitty-gritty of how to really take my gameplay to another level. Lethal Frag and Dark Twins were the two main folks I watched there.
Okay.
Uh, and when I did move over to started watching Twitch for entertainment, I also followed a lot of the old Something Awful Let's Play goons. Uh,
Mm.
and there was one or two of them who got into the Link to the Past randomizer pretty early, saw it, fond memories of it of my youth, and I still play it, at least once a week with friends, sometimes on its own, sometimes in Super Metroid combo form. So that was the first one I really understood the concept of a randomizer. Uh, and it's all right. It's probably the second or third best randomizer out there.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's pretty high. There are a lot of randomizers out there. And you say second or third randomizer. What are some other randomizers that you enjoy playing?
There's this one called Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise that's really, really good.
Never heard of it.
I know. You should try it sometime. I think you'll like it.
Nah, it
Uh,
doesn't sound like it's up my alley.
but no, seriously, I'm not trying to besmirch any other game. I have played a wide variety of randomizers, and I've enjoyed a wide variety of randomizers.
Yeah.
I love Free Enterprise. The Z3R one's great.
Mhm.
Recently, small addiction to SMZ3R.
Oh, yeah.
I've enjoyed playing casually the Final Fantasy One randomizer, the
Mhm.
Zelda 2 randomizer. Uh, I enjoy a little bit of both Beyond Chaos and Worlds Collide. I've played a little bit of Career Day. Uh, and yeah, there's let's see, the Super Mario World randomizer. I have fun with it time to time when I want something that's like hour and a half digestible tops. Just let me like something that I can go through in a sitting without having to have like you know 8-10 hour commitment because I don't know the underlying game. That's a big
Right.
thing. Like the
Right.
more you know the underlying game, the easier of a time you'll have with the randomizer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Oh, I nearly forgot Soul Blazer. Sorry, Ground Flare. Yeah,
oh,
Soul
Soul
Blazer
Blazer
Rando.
Rando.
That's
You're
a
the
good
one
one.
who got me into that, actually.
I
Just so you're
mean,
aware.
just for the music alone, like,
The
oh,
music's yeah, the music's
so good.
great. Yeah, there's not a wasted track in that entire cartridge. It's so good. But we've been ducking around the elephant in the room here. What is it about free enterprise that actually hooked you so hard? Because I'm willing to wager that you've spent a majority of your randomizer hours playing that randomizer. What is it about this one that really got you?
Okay, I'm gonna split this into two parts because there is the part that initially sparked interest, but then there's the part that kept interest. Sparking interest is just Final Fantasy IV is one of my favorite games of all time. It's the first RPG I remember playing obsessively on the Super Nintendo in my youth. Uh, I had the rental copy. I then bought my friend's copy in middle school. I ended up having the Game Boy Advance version, the 3D remake on DS. I have played that vanilla game probably more times than any other, and definitely owned more versions of it than any other. Um, but that's true for several other games as well. I love my RPGs. I love my Final Fantasy series. So that's what was the spark. But the part that actually made me hold on to it was how active really good players of the vanilla game were, notably one Rivers McCown, at working with the programming side of things to make sure game balance was interesting and meaningful, and that you were rewarded for knowing about the game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's really the efforts by the head engineers to keep the game balanced and fresh and interesting and meaningful to where if you've practiced, if you study, if you learn things about the vanilla game, you will be better at the randomizer as well. And I had that entire base. Admittedly, I already had a lot of foundational knowledge that helped out,
Mm-hmm.
but being rewarded for it and seeing those efforts to continue making the game better in that strategical sense, it just hooked me in a way that I'm very thankful it did.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a pretty complete answer. Which my next question was going to be what do you look for in a randomizer in general? You kind of hit upon a couple of things, the reward system. Talk to me a little bit about the rewards that you were talking about knowing the base game.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, it's always fun to think about certain enemies in the game and surprise people, like who may be watching a race or watching a stream and not know that something happens. Like, if you're fighting Rubicante at an early spot and you only have black mages, well, okay, he glared someone. You're down a character.
Mm-hmm.
You hit him with the fire one spell, and he brings you back up. You don't need life potions. You don't need a white mage. Ruby's got your back.
Yeah.
And just knowing those things from the base game that you then get to use here, uh, I don't know. It's just one small example, but it And you see that in a lot of other randomizers as well. I'm not trying to besmirch any other game. I
Yeah.
love playing a wide variety of randomizers and learning new tech that works both in the vanilla game and that. But
Yeah.
again, it's just that baseline of knowledge that I had for Final Fantasy IV that when you get to actually use that here,
Of course, it's all
it's so
about
personally
preference.
satisfying.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Personal predilections, prior knowledge, and just it seems like it shaped itself in such a way that you just sort of like fit right in, like a little cocoon. Uh, no, it makes a lot of sense, and I know for myself that one of the things that I enjoy about randomizers is not only the reward system, but the fact that you can learn something new about a game that you have been playing for how long years later in a completely unrelated way from vanilla, like a simple little itty bitty function. When I first played, I had no idea that the Baron guards were considered mages or whatever. I had
Oh yeah,
no
absolutely.
idea. And how could I? But that was just one little piece right there that I went, oh, today I learned. And there's a lot of today I learned that you just run into in a randomizer like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love those personal knowledges. Like everyone, because in the vanilla game, you're never going to cast the holy spell on Demist or Octomammoth, and nearly everyone who's played Free Enterprise has done that at one point and been like, oh, oh. um, and but even beyond the personal realizations, I do really enjoy. Uh, I really enjoy the group discoveries as well. For instance, so much with how the ATB system in Free Enterprise works, and even being able to relate that back a bit to the vanilla game. Just, it was kind of a weird system when you actually dig into the nuts and bolts and crannies of it.
Oh
But
yeah.
discovering things like, okay, how can we manipulate things with curse strings? How much do things change up if we, make it where everyone anchors the same instead of it being dependent on Cecil? One of my favorite accidental discoveries was learning how to keep status effects from ever ending. Did that accidentally on the very first Cata seed I ran, and
Huh.
when I went back to revisit it 6 months later, I'm like, wait, why did it not wear off?
Mhm.
And then from there, a whole bunch of us dived into it and learned that if something's happening every single tick of the ATB, the game can't do anything about it. It
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
So
Your
it's
the fantastic use of that, of course, being Berserk against Plague's Count. Uh,
that's
just
a fun one. Anytime you can keep Wall from wearing off, even the rare exceptional, let me hide for 17 hours while Virus slowly kills Zeromus. Uh, you
no,
know, it's just the group discoveries I think are as fun as the individual realizations too.
huh. Well, so talking about randomizers, you're talking about gaming by yourself, you're talking about gaming in a community, and you also talked about let's plays and streamers and stuff. And that leads me to this, of course. You yourself are a streamer and have been for a long time. And when did you start streaming?
Well, I had streamed maybe once or twice before getting into the free enterprise community, and that was specifically to do Jackbox games with my old Destiny clan. But after
Okay.
that, I really wanted to get into the racing scene with this. Like, I found out about the randomizer, did some practice seeds at the time. Of course, all the races were on SRL. On SRL, you must stream your gameplay, and got the setup together, figured it out, and then started racing, started practicing, and yeah, and now we're here. So it's really just the desire. For some people, they get into it with a desire. Oh, I want to entertain. I want to, try to do this, try to do that. For me, it was just, I want to race. I want to race. This looks like so much fun. Let me race. And from there, things, took off.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is it about streaming that interests you enough to just keep coming back to it? Because, I mean, you want to race and you do it because you like to interact, but also like there's there's a lot of streaming that happens and you don't do it for no reason, and it's not going to be like an entirely self-aggrandizing thing either. You're not in it for the fame. Like, what is it about streaming that interests you so much to keep coming back to it after years?
Oh, I'd say no small part of it is because of how great the free enterprise community is. I mean, when I hopped in here and started racing, I wasn't an old school vanilla runner or anything, and people were eager and willing to help with all the minor pieces of tech. Like I remember when I first learned Run Buffer, Penguinator was
Oh yeah.
in my chat trying to explain how to do it correctly, uh, and all those other things that everyone was willing to share knowledge. They weren't, holding it back. They weren't saying, "Well, why don't you just, go spend half an hour searching for the answer?" No, folks were willing to hop on out and, lift other
Thanks,
people up.
Aristotle.
Yeah. When there are questions, people are willing to help. So it was one just being able to jump into a really friendly group of people. That was one of the best things at the start.
Hmm.
Now, there's also the paying it forward aspect of it. Like when I am playing free enterprise, I'm not, I mean, I am admittedly a chatterbox. I will talk about my thoughts. Why am I taking the actions I'm taking? What
Gas.
I'm planning for my next fight. It's it's tempting to impart that knowledge forward, to spark other people's interest in the game, to get more people racing, to get more people involved. Uh, and yeah, so it's a combination of those things. It's a great community, and it's wanting to help improve that community, and also it's just fun. Like I like playing the game. I like chatting with people while playing the game, and it's a great medium in which to do so.
Makes a lot of sense. Huh? Yeah. See here. Sorry about this. Just lost myself because I wrote something funny that a person in chat just typed there. So you have your channel, and there's it's objectively quite a little following these days. And I know that you probably don't like to speak about it in such terms, but it's objectively you have a pretty good community that's surrounding your channel, and it's great to see. Uh, I am a fledgling streamer. Do you have any tips on how to accumulate a following like that in my channel?
Uh, honestly, I okay. So I don't know if this necessarily works. This was one of the things that a streamer when I was still a regular Destiny and Destiny 2 player, again with my friends back then, there were a few streamers that we routinely watched, either because they were pulling people in to do Trials of Osiris runs, that was the most elite PvP thing, or they were just entertaining. It was fun to watch people playing the game that we were playing. Uh, Heck, I'll name names. This was Dr. Lupo, who since then blew up, became a big Fortnite streamer and all that, but was really friendly to even his smaller community back then. Uh, and the big thing was make a schedule and stick to it. On the other hand, I do see big streamers who just stream whenever they feel like it. But if people value regularity, they like knowing that you're going to be there doing the thing that they expect you to be doing. So if you can be there when you say you'll be there, doing the thing that you say you'll be doing, well, they know that they can pop by. And if they try to pop by and you're not there, well, they're going to go somewhere else. Uh, so I don't know if that's really the sage advice, but I think it definitely helped me, and it's definitely worked for other people as well.
Makes sense. Yeah, consistency is a big issue. It makes a lot of sense. So when you're streaming and when you're playing by yourself, community, whatever, um, and this could have a situational answer as well. Do you prefer playing vanilla games or do you prefer playing randomizers?
Usually, well, I mean, it depends on what I'm doing. Admittedly, I am not as hardcore of a speedrunner as a lot of other folks who have gotten into randomizers. Sometimes the bug bites me, and I do want to grind out a certain time. I want to learn a new run because I think the tech is cool. Uh, I will probably never be a world record kind of grinder, but I love seeing it and wanting to learn how it works, why it works, and can I pull it off. And in those situations, yeah, I'll be working on a vanilla run, and that's cool. The randomizers I also like though, because I know that for me playing it and for anyone watching, whatever's happening will be different in substantially different from what's before. There may be a similar skeleton, a similar strategy, but every single time they are still getting new content, and I'm getting new content, which helps keep me entertained and as well. I'm playing video games because they're fun. I'm not playing them because I must play, I must play. No, if you're not having fun, you probably shouldn't be playing the video game.
Hmm.
That's I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, games for fun, gasp.
I
But
know.
yeah, crazy talk. But so if you're playing by yourself, for example, say you just want to kill an hour of some kind before bed or whatever. You have no intention of streaming. You have no intention of like playing with a person in the room or whatever. It's just you and the console or whatever. Um, what would you rather play? What would you boot up?
Well, right now the answer is Picross S4. I am a big old Picross puzzle nut, and
Wow.
I also have been informed that Murder by Numbers is on sale on the Switch store right now. So I love those kind of puzzle games, ones where because it's definitely hard to. That's one of those things that it's kind of tricky to be engaging with chat when I get into puzzle mode because
Right.
I just, you see the grid, you see the numbers, and your brain and thumbs just take over, and the entire vocal part of you doesn't have a say in the matter. So I love doing that when I'm offline because I know there's no way that I would I get so into it that I just lose all sense of self. Like I completely it's weird to say this, but Picross, I kind of dissociate a little bit while doing it, and I
Okay.
love it.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, and this is sort of a chicken and the egg question then. It's like you're talking about Picross, how you kind of zero in and you see the grid and like you just kind of go out of your body for a moment and you're just doing the thing. Does the game that you're going to play and the mode that you're going to be in inform how you're going to play it, as in streaming it or playing it with people or such? Or do you find yourself going, I want to play a game with people, so I will play blank, or I want to play solo, so I will play blank? Like which comes first for you?
Uh, I mean, fundamentally, it's if I'm interested in the game, period.
Okay.
Yeah, whether I'm doing it online or offline, it doesn't really come into play too much there. It's mostly, do I have an interest in it? And then, if so, I can go either way. Uh, but not every, but there are also games that you are so intimate, so familiar with that it's very easy to kind of go on autopilot and let your hands do part of the gameplay while your eyes and brain can be engaging and actually talk with people. So that's another consideration too. Um, so I don't know if that really answers the question. I hope it does at least a little bit.
I think yes and no, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, I mean, you're talking a lot about something of great interest, of course, which is like the motivation behind playing anything, which is really the fundamentals of the question itself. There's like what drives you to play something in a specific time is always going to be different depending on what the game is and what your mood is, and it's a little of column A and a little of column B is what I just heard. So
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
So I'm going to divert here for a second because I've been talking your ear off about all of the questions that I have and stuff, and I've written down some questions that chat has thrown out there. Um, what games are you the worst at?
Real-time strategy games.
Oh.
I cannot do RTSs. I They activate I'm not typically that anxious of a person in real life,
Hmm.
but any kind of real-time strategy or MOBA that require and the funny thing is will play other games that require split-second decision making. Like I love playing FPSs, looter shooters, things like that. But when I get into that RTS situation, I freeze completely, deer in headlights, panic mode, and I cannot enjoy that kind of game. Turn-based strategies, heck yeah, let's do it. Uh, Board game style things, like all kinds of tabletop strategy games, absolutely fine with. Love them to pieces. Kind of sad with the social distancing, not gotten to hang out with my board game group in real life lately. So yeah, those kind of things fine, but the real time stuff, ooh,
So
no, thank you.
So what is it about the real-time strategy game that incites such a panic in you? What is it specifically about that gets you to go, "Ah!" You know?
I just really like to. I mean, and this is kind of true of me in real life as much as it is in gaming. I really do like to make informed decisions. I like to consider
Mhm.
the options, pour over the possibilities, seek, other input from other folks. And in that situation, when you're on the clock that harshly, it's a little too much for me to process. And then maybe, there's kind of the I kind of wish maybe there was a little more Dunning-Kruger going on there. Like, if I just went in thinking I was an expert, it would be so much easier. But it's just when you're aware of all the things that you are not considering, along with the things that you are trying to consider, that's when it really comes to bear on me. Like, it would be if I could just go in and just tunnel vision, I would probably have a good time. But I'm constantly thinking here in the background of all the stuff I'm not considering, and that's what gets me.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Next silly question. What hair product do you think Fusoya uses?
He definitely doesn't use any sulfates in his shampoo. I do because I'm cheap, but no sulfates. He has a very good he probably uses like a horse conditioner of some kind. Like he's getting ready to go out for a dressage performance. And
A horse conditioner?
yes, it is a majestic mane and tail kind of situation. Uh, and that's how he keeps because that's a lot of hair to keep so lush. You can't
I
spare
just
any expense.
I just had an image of Fusoya's sprite galloping across a rolling hill during a sunset. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Horse conditioner. There. Stone cold. Lock it down. That's the answer right there. Bacchus wine, red or white?
Oh, I'm a red drinker.
Ah, yes.
Simply put,
Mm.
white's okay. If it's like a pairing for a fancy dinner at a fancy restaurant, then sure, I will not object to the decisions of my hosts. But if I'm drinking it just for just to enjoy it, to savor on its own, definitely the red.
So, this is a very special question. It requires a little bit of a willing suspension of disbelief here. Okay. So you're stranded on a desert island, right?
Uh huh.
And you are a hot dog
Uh huh.
and you are starving to death.
Yeah.
Would you eat yourself?
Oh, it depends. What's my topping situation? What's my topping selection?
You have no toppings. You're on a desert island.
Oh, then no, I'm good. I'll just starve to death. I'm fine.
Just let it go.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Now, if you let me be either Chicago style, like drag it through the whole garden, or you let me be like sauerkraut with a real grainy mustard, then oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The auto cannibalism is guaranteed.
Yeah. No relish, huh? No relish.
I don't. I like the neon green stuff on the Chicago style,
Okay.
but the two don't get to meet. It's either the Chicago style or the sauerkraut with the grainy mustard. Not combining the two.
Beautiful, beautiful. We got a couple of free enterprise ones now to sort of hook it back around. As now the jumping is a thing in free enterprise, the push B to jump flag, which is amazing. Is there any other flag that you would like to see added to free enterprise? Is there anything that you were tossing around in your brain that you're like, maybe this would be an interesting thing to explore?
Well, as far as anything that's that entertaining on a broad scale, I've not really thought about that side of things. That's actually a really cool addition. It's something that I don't think any of us saw coming, and it was really fascinating, both in terms of how it changed the gameplay, changed the meta, enabled a whole lot of cheeky strategies. Uh, Now, as far as like challenge level flags, there have been a few I've suggested. One notable one that I think would be really cool would be a party cap flag. Final Fantasy IV lets you have 5 party members.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot, I believe, more than any other Final Fantasy game in the mainline series. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think you are wrong. I think you are correct. I think that it's usually 3 or 4, and 4 is the only one that has 5 party members.
Yeah, so I think it'd be cool as a challenge flag to have something that reduces your party size to where you could only have, 1, 2, 3, or 4. We saw Dusty Griff recently beat Zeromus with single character challenges on pardon me, 13 characters, both
Really?
Paladin
He did
and
all
Dark Knight
13?
Vessel. Yeah, he did all 13.
Oh, wow.
Uh, I think he had to grind like 11 hours to get a Moon Veil for his Tela, but it's and I don't think we'd want to have too many races or anything that has a one character party cap. But I think there'd be some really interesting gameplay and strategical space to explore 3 character and 4 character teams. Just
That's interesting. I'm
what do you do, especially with the whole anchoring concept, where during the Fabul Gauntlet, one of the big strategical aspects was to make one character nearly not completely useless. There's still ways around that
Mhm.
bottomed out agility. But what happens when you only have 3+1 taking that role, 2+1 occupying that role? I think that'd be a really fun thing to see, and I'd be excited to play that flag.
Yeah, yeah. What's your favorite Z sprite?
Ah, uh, I'm gonna okay. I don't know every Z sprite, but off the top of my head, 2 of my favorites are the Job Dwarf and the evil Bubsy that Starman Random won with the Hummingway Open this past
Okay.
fall. So we'll go
Evil
with
Buff.
those 2.
Okay, great.
There are probably others I like even more, but just 2 of my favorites off the top of my head. There we go.
And to bring it all the way back around to the next segment, talking about the Fabul Gauntlet, you mentioned how you were playing this Fabul Gauntlet. You have won it as well. Was there ever a point in the Gauntlet where you asked yourself, how have I not lost yet?
Oh, that's every race, and I'd even had that conversation with Rivers and a few other people when some of us were just talking strategical shop, either on the workshop or one of our own discords, and it's one of those things where and this is one of the big differences between the group races we've had in the past with previous tournaments and the 1v1s we had in Fabul Gauntlet. Uh, in the big races, odds are someone is going to choose the right sequence of actions to beat the seed
Mm.
nearly optimally.
Oh yeah,
It definitely depends on the flags. It depends on how many racers are in there. But like if you have a big group qualifier with like 40 people, someone is going to do the right thing. Um,
right,
and even for players, people are going to make different gambles. And if you go down a rabbit hole or two, you probably lost. And
right.
I still kind of had that mindset going into 1v1s, and that was a big mistake I had going on for
Mm.
quite a while. Because in 1v1, you have to assume that there is an average number of mistakes or rabbit holes that any given player will go down with some standard deviation swinging either way. And you have to trust that your opponent is also making those similar mistakes
Right,
and not feel too hard up about it. Now, there is a point where you're starting to approach like 80% of the seed completed, and you do start to sweat, you do start to worry. Uh,
right.
but it was definitely more intense concern at the start of the tournament, towards closer to the end after I'd had that conversation and realized, okay, you have to trust that in a 1v1, the seed's not going perfectly for either player. Someone is messing up. You're both messing up. Just relax and play your game a little better.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point. The difference between playing an all-out free-for-all, knock 'em down, drag 'em out race, where somebody can just come out of nowhere and be a Bucky Dent or an Aaron Boone, as it were. Um, baseball reference. That was probably just for Rivers. Or whereas when you're playing a 1 versus 1, you're actually you're less likely to have that one person in the grove of people who made the choices the whole way. It's fascinating stuff. And at what point in the Fabul Gauntlet did you exactly decide that maybe you needed to switch up your mindset to that, or was there a time?
I believe it was around the quarterfinals or the semifinals after that discussion, and it definitely took a little bit of the edge off and let me play a little more comfortably, even when I was making a lot of checks. Um, and yeah, it was just I would have to dig into the archive on Discord and find out exactly when that conversation was, but it was definitely a turning point, not necessarily in terms of my gameplay, but in terms of my calming down and not panicking while racing to the Zeromus fight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Rivers McCowan making an Andy Chavez reference. My goodness. My goodness. More baseball. More baseball. So let's actually bring it outside of baseball. Bring it back around. Uh, everyone's like, sports ball. Shut up, Muppets.
I'm still waiting for you, Rivers, and Flurry to start a sports podcast or
Oh,
vodcast here
man.
on the FE channel. I
Oh,
think that would be hilariously off-brand, but I would listen to it.
I, I would be the most outclassed person in that in that podcast. I'm a fan. I may know some things, but I guarantee you they got me on knowledge stone cold. But I would totally do it too. I would totally do it. Uh, so you take part in a lot of races of this randomizer. You won the Fabul Gauntlet. You've taken part in every one of the leagues, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and that leads me to probably the biggest question that I am interested in, which is when you're playing a randomizer, when you're just running a randomizer, yeah, you always have the clock on, but do you prefer to race and play competitively, or do you prefer to play casually?
Oh, I don't think I can choose. No, I mean they're completely different experiences.
Okay.
Uh, and when I go into race mode, like you feel like especially let me clarify tournament race mode for the casual leagues that we have going on for pickup races, community races, I can stay pretty even keeled. But when tournaments are going on, every single one I've been a part of, that adrenaline rush just comes so strong. As soon as you hit dot ready in your channel before, your gatekeeper drops it, that heart rate picks up and the
Mm.
entire way through just the the way that I feel myself focus and the way I feel my brain like shift modes, I wouldn't trade that for anything, but I also do not want to do that. Like that's one reason I'm glad that we do have like the off season because no, 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 no. I would not be able to bear that. I would fall out. So I love that tournament mode, both the way I feel it in my endocrine system and my brain, uh, but I also love being able to chill out, talk more about what I'm doing, consider a multitude of options while, chatting with folks. So I like both sides of it. I love the casual side, and I love, love, love the racing side of things.
Is there ever a time when you do one of these randomizers? Specifically, is there a time when you play free enterprise where you don't have the clock on it?
It usually if I'm doing some kind of like experimental kata flag set or something, if it's one of those ultra hard seeds that someone has sent me and saying, "Hey, I think
Mm,
you'll get a kick out of this." If it's one that I don't think I'll be able to complete in a single sitting, just because I really don't like having to go back into live
right.
split and set my timer for the next stream, those I'll leave it off. And sometimes I just forget. Sometimes I actually hit a number while doing something and then it's ruined. So I don't sweat it, but I try to do it on nearly every seed I play.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. And why do you feel compelled to always have a clock on it? What is it about having a clock on it that makes it more of an interesting experience to you?
Well, just have a rough idea of how you're stacking up. If it is a seed that someone else, runs. If it's one that after the fact, I'm like, that was actually really interesting. Let me send it to another frequent
Hmm.
racer of the game, and see how we compare, see whose strategy plays out. It's also, I think, good for viewers, just so if someone's tuning in, they know, oh, well, he's 15 minutes into the seed. There's a lot ahead of it. Versus, oh, and there's not a lot to recap. Versus someone who pops in sees that you're, you know, an hour, 15 minutes in and has no idea what's going on.
Mm.
So I think it's also nice and informative for people to come in and see, oh, okay, I have a better idea of how the seed has taken shape.
It's fair. It's fair. When you when you're getting the itch to race, when you're getting the itch to run, did that come from any sort of vanilla speed running place? Were you ever interested in speedrunning vanilla games? Maybe even interested in doing like a no credit warp or a no 64 run of FF4? Has that ever been a thing that crossed your mind, or was this really something that kind of began with randomizers?
Well, it kind of began with randomizers. I had never speedrun before. I had friends who had done like casual real life races, like let's see who can finish Yoshi's Island first. Let's see who can finish Donkey Kong Country first. Like I had friends in shortly after undergrad who had a house together, and they would do these kinds of Friday night things and have a good time, which was fun to watch. But I hadn't ever really been bitten by that spark. I would
Mm.
watch GDQs each year. Everyone would be hosting them. Um, I would then I discovered RPG Limit Break and really enjoyed watching it. I think the first one of it I watched was fairly recent, 2017's, I believe. Hold
Okay.
on, let me do some math. Yes, 2017's was the first one I'd watched of Limit Break,
Okay.
and I learned that RPG speedruns are a thing. But the thing that
Hmm.
really got me into Free Enterprise to start with was River's run at AGDQ 2018
Oh
of
yes,
the No CW run.
that's
I
right.
looked at, I had dinner plans with a friend. I was looking over the schedule and I saw Final Fantasy IV, my basically favorite game of all time, had a like 2 hour, 10-minute estimate, and I'm like, what? What?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
And I'm like, hey, I may be about 5 minutes late. I've got to watch this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. He shows off the nuke glitch too, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of that.
oh yeah, the glitch showcase at the end
Yeah.
was
Oh
like
man.
fantastic.
So
And so seeing that run, following him and Atara, and then they started playing Free Enterprise, and then I got into it.
hmm.
And see, the thing was that I thought, I like playing video games. I was fairly decent at first-person shooters. Like I played a lot of Halo and a lot of Destiny, just because I had real life friends who played them, and that was how we'd hang out online together. But I'd never really considered myself someone who would get into any kind of speedrunning. I thought it was like that's an entire skill level beyond me. I could never do that. And then you get into Free Enterprise, and you learn how to be better in your menuing. You learn how to run buffer. You learn how to take care of these fights, how to use these glitches. Um, and it kind of motivates it. Like I did learn Paladin percent when there was I believe it was at Questing for Glory. One of community
Mm-hmm.
friends, Sonny Wrath, was not sure he'd be able to make it. I had learned the run over the week just in case I needed to uh, back up for him, and I didn't have to, but it was really fun to learn it. Um,
Okay.
and I definitely still intend to eventually put down times on No CW and No 64. I don't think I'll ever be top three in either one, just because. Uh, Again, I love the idea of learning the run and being able to manage it, be able to explain what happens in it, but I don't think I have that spark to grind out the exact same thing over and over and hope for the optimal seed. Oh no,
Right.
I missed my carrot trick.
Right.
I love the game, and I definitely intend to dive into that side of it, but it doesn't spark the joy in me that having to think on the fly, have to reevaluate everything every time I boot up the game does the way the randomizer does.
Of course. Of course. Of course. So, is there any non-RPG that you're interested in on that level um, at all, or is it
I
really?
mean, no, I definitely love watching vanilla speedruns as well. I am generally of the opinion that you will this is just me. Some people can watch any speed run and be like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I need to have a baseline familiarity with it, or it has to have tons of wild glitches that just blow your mind out of the box if even if you don't
Mm,
have that basal understanding of the game." But yeah, of course, there are plenty of platformers and other styles of games that, if it bites me, I'll do it. I have
mhm.
one of my cart of Donkey Kong Country while doing a casual race with some friends
Oh
a few
boy.
months back. I learned has that glitch where if you tap A at the first bend in the road, you warp 4 worlds ahead. So it's
Yep.
like, well,
Hmm.
maybe I'll end up having to roll. I'll roll just like a little, like I'll be in the kitty end of the pool. I'll roll kitty. I won't roll deep. I'll roll hot tub. Is hot tub an option? Can you roll hot tub?
Oh man. I just remember seeing that the original Donkey Kong Country had a reverse boss order speed run and went boom, mind blown. How?
Yeah, and again, I have gotten into the Super Metroid Zelda 3 crossover randomizer lately, and I've actually watched for the first time entertained like I've been entertained by Super Metroid speedruns, and those get real wild. Like that's
Oh yeah.
so far beyond anything that I could even approach, but it's still it's one of those things that you kind of want to explore, you want to learn the tech, and for me, I'd be happy laying down like one mediocre run.
Mm.
Just because there's still so many games that I want to play. I mean, I'm still gonna play mostly free enterprise, but I mean, I want the variety. I
Of
like
course.
having a different experience every time I go in.
Mhm.
Uh, and so yeah, that's why I do have the love for the platformers, the adventure games, the RPGs, all of the above.
Mm. And you had mentioned crazy glitches and stuff like that. Do you like playing with glitches, or do you like not playing with any glitches, or just no major glitches? Like what's when you go to play something like this? Like what's your preference level on that?
It just depends on the game. For instance, there's an arbitrary code execution manip, I believe, of both the original Pokemon games. I saw one for the Japanese Final Fantasy III during a recent marathon as well, where it was beaten in like 8 minutes.
Oh
And
yeah.
although those are quaint and cool, I think that if I want to learn something, I want it to at least have a little longer form factor than that.
Mm.
Whether like Final Fantasy IV again. Pally percent, great diving endpoint. If anyone here wants to learn to speedrun the vanilla game, Pally's a great diving endpoint. It's about an hour. It doesn't involve any of the really tricky time fights. And it's a good place to get your feet wet. And then, no CW, 2 hours. You avoid, again, a lot of the hardest stuff. It's still no cakewalk, but there actually Final Fantasy IV is amazing in this. There's a really great like sequence that you can take on the speedrunning, field of it to learn a bit more, learn a bit more, learn a bit more, instead of diving into something that is, 8 hours long to start with no,
Yes.
shorter version of the run.
Hmm. Yeah, and when you're coming to run lengths and everything, like is there a like an estimated time for a run or a playthrough of a seed or something like that, where you're like, no, I'm gonna tap out of this? Like, is there an upper threshold, or is it just games specific?
Oh, there's definitely an upper threshold. Like
Mm.
legendary speedrunners out there. I mean, High Spirits, Professor Palmer, Bowie the Hero's done a few of these. Like they've done those marathon runs of certain games on RPG Limit Break where the run
Hmm.
itself is timed at like 30 hours.
Sure.
Like the upper limit for what I would ever do, I think I would be willing to do like a 9, 10 hour situation, maybe for
Hmm.
like the PlayStation Final Fantasies, 7, 8, and 9. Uh, but anything beyond that, especially if you don't get like good good bio breaks, time for
Yeah.
snacks, etc., no dice. I would
Mm.
say my upper limit would be 12 hours, and even that would be a very infrequent, okay, I laid down a run, I'm never playing it again kind of situation.
Right. Right. Yeah, and when you're approaching something like that too, thinking about you know all of the breaks that you need for being a human being in the midst of gaming and stuff. I mean, you've probably encountered one or two issues with that. And what is the greatest piece of advice that you can give somebody who decides to run games like this and also to take care of themselves?
Oh, I mean, I generally I mean, it depends on the game you're talking about. Like,
Mhm.
Free Enterprise is great. It's very modular. You can beat a seed in 2 hours, and guess what? Stretch your legs, get your blood flowing, stay hydrated, things of that nature. Longer form games definitely learn when your breaks are, I would say. I don't know any of those real longer form speed runs. The
Right.
longest speed run I'm like familiar with, I couldn't run it, but I could tell you what's happening every step of the way, is probably Final Fantasy IV, no 64. And that's, about 3 hours, 15 minutes, upper end in a marathon with safeties and everything. Uh, and that's fine. But longer form ones, learn when you can take breaks, practice it in pieces, I would guess. I don't know. I don't do that kind of speed running. Uh, but I do believe in taking care of your body. As someone who is getting older and starting to feel the ravages of time,
Oh yes.
uh, take care of yourselves, friends. That
Yeah.
that that's the big thing. And that's not even just true of speed running. That's true of any kind of marathon gaming session in general.
Mm.
Like I have friends who play MMOs, and it's been like, oh yeah, well, it's been 8 hours. I guess I should get up and yes, you should. You're gonna
Yeah.
get a thrombosis, and you're gonna feel real bad when you have to go to the ER saying I gamed too hard.
Right, right, right. Well, one thing I've often been told in my life is you only get one set of knees, you only get one lower back. You know, you only get one head. You got to take care of everything. And Yeah, it's interesting how games sometimes can make me forget that, and it tends to need to be an active part of my life specifically. Um, so I'm a new runner to FE, and I've gotten myself a little knowledge. You know, the aforementioned base knowledge. I run a few seat of the weeks, and I think I'm ready to start racing against people. What advice would you give me on how to prepare for these races?
Honestly, if you're comfortable sitting down and playing a seed start to finish, just jump in. If there's not a race at a convenient time, the asynchronous races are a great way to do so. Seed of the week is, of course, an asynchronous race. You can do it in your own time. You can pause your timer and come back. It's all honor system. And async races are the same way. They're a little more shorter form. They're usually kept up for like 48 hours or so. And then if you can make a live race, if it's one that requires restreaming, test your setup ahead of time. Make
Hmm.
sure that you have both your game and your timer captured. Just be sure it's all working, and then jump right in. Even if you know you have a bad time or a bad race, if you get stuck, you can always forfeit. No big deal. If you finish and you want to know, wow, what could I have done better? You know, you can either find someone with a time similar to yours or a little better, see what they did to start shaving those seconds off, or compare to whoever won the race, top few racers, see what options they took.
Hmm.
Uh, so there's no reason not to race. Like it's not like oh you lost, haha. We now
Right.
get your car. Like no, this is not illegal street racing. This is a video game on the internet. You're
Honey, why
fine.
is there a guy driving away with our car? Oh, I lost the seat of the week.
Oh,
No, well, what I think I'm trying to drive at though is like there comes a point where you cross the threshold into understanding little bits of tech and stuff, but at a certain point when I started watching people play this, I remember it just looked like they were slicing through the game like a hot knife through butter, and I could only make out a couple of things that they were actually doing, and breaking it down was a little difficult for me because it's sort of like this all-inclusive thing. I'm just watching the whole thing. Is there any one specific good solid starting point as far as tech that a new runner could potentially work on?
Ah, okay, I'm gonna give you a partial answer to that. Well, and I'm gonna answer a different question, and then I'll try to answer that question.
Okay.
You mentioned being a little overwhelmed when you would watch races and everything, and that is admittedly a little side effect of the fact that we do try to feature multiple community members, especially in the community races. You know, we'll have 4 people displayed at a time. On the club races, we'll have 2 different racers up there. When you're still getting your legs. Uh, it's kind of like I guess like car sickness, focus on a distant point. Don't try to be hopping back and forth between all 4 racers up on the screen. Try to
Hmm.
follow one of them, see what they're doing differently from you, and follow that. But as far as specific tech, I would say honestly, don't worry about the run buffering. Don't worry about plinking. Don't worry about things like that.
Ugh,
Uh,
I
the
can't plink.
the biggest thing I would say for getting better at the game to start with, and some people will disagree with me on this, uh, but it's actually turn your battle speed down. Uh, when
Huh.
I first started racing this was advice that Nierm gave a bunch of people, which was go ahead and turn it down to battle speed 2, and he would leave it at that the entire game.
Yeah.
And I dare say for newer racers, you may even want to turn it down to battle speed 3. Uh, there's a finite number of frames per every ATB tick, and if you, because you're unfamiliar with the game, you're still learning what your options are, what the boss scripts are, the bosses aren't slowing down. They are going to take an action
Mhm.
every time
Yeah.
their turn comes up, and if you're not in a menu or you've not hit a run buffer, it's still going.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Uh,
makes a lot of sense.
So that's definitely the biggest piece of advice I have. Until you're comfortable feeling the timing, until you are aware of exactly what a boss's script is, like eventually you'll get to the point where you enter a fight and you know this boss is going to do this in this order, and
Mhm.
my team will be able to do this to counteract it. But it's hard to gain that knowledge if you're in a state of panic w- by getting, just utterly wrecked by a boss as soon as you enter the fight.
I love that. I love that. That's great. And I really wish that a less experienced Muppets would have heard and taken that advice, because I don't think I have ever played a seed on anything other than Battle Speed 1.
Yeah,
Like,
there are definitely fights where you will be punished for that.
oh,
Any
yeah.
fight with multiple opening physical attacks at a high physical attack location,
Oh, yeah.
the Dark Imps,
Fuck.
the Baigan fight, any of these, you go into a fight that one of the high hard hitting places that's also speedy, and you're losing 3 party members before you even know what you're doing.
Yep.
Uh, so and the funny thing is that both of those are, well, Baigan a little more harshly, but the Dark Imps are an easy fight to cancel. I mean, to counteract, but you can't counteract if your team's already dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's kind of like getting water hag at Leviathan. It's like, yeah, you think it's free, except for it swings at you 4 times before you can blink, and it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, for new runners, you may want to turn it down to 3 or even 4. If you're trying to race though, you don't want to spend too much time down there, just because as every racer who's turned their battle speed down for Wyvern knows, you'll forget to turn it back up and you'll
Mhm.
lose a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
time that way.
Oh yes. Yes, you will. Every time. Uh, hey, slow poke, poke, poke.
Yeah.
Uh, so you were talking about watching players and trying to follow one specific player. Who are some of your favorite players to watch play FE?
Oh, I mean, anytime we get deep in a tournament, there are fantastic racers to watch. Uh, But on the restreams lately, I've so as far as new racers who I think everyone needs to be keeping their eye on in the next big tournament, uh, I would say Jeebus is going to be hot stuff to
Mhm.
watch. Project Dia is amazing, really great to watch. Zilch has been tearing it up in community and pickup races lately in a way that is like, I mean, long-term name, but suddenly just great success.
Yeah.
Uh, so these are 3 people off the top of my head who I think everyone, especially those of us who may think that we're, in the upper echelon of racing, watch our backs. They're coming
Mhm.
for us. Uh, and yeah, but I mean, I'm overlooking at least a dozen people when I say that.
Of course.
There's so many great racers. Whatever happens next on the tournament scene is going to be amazing to watch. Whenever I'm not racing, I try to keep track of it just to know who's coming up, who is optimizing things that we may not realize,
Mhm.
and it's exciting to see because there's always the worry that your community will get into a point where the elite racers are already carved out and you're not going to see any new blood. It's going to be the same names winning tournament after tournament,
Right.
and and there's a little bit of blandness to that. Even if they're amazing racers and you're having exciting matches, I love the fact that we are still seeing people in this community come in, learn the game, and beat all these seasoned folks, and I
All
think that's
these old
spectacular.
folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're talking about racing and stuff, what's your favorite free enterprise flag set to race?
Oh, I mean, it varies every single time. I did love the Fabul Gauntlet one. I loved having the variety of objectives. Just it made it to where no 2 races were exactly the same. Uh, which I mean, you could probably throw any kind of flags down except maybe like apple seeds. My fingers hurt just thinking about it, and and I'd race it. But oh, sorry, I need to clear my throat. One moment.
Oh, the apple seed.
Yeah. But I'm honestly my f- even though I kind of run one of the weekly club races with some good help from Dusty Griffin Moonblaze Wolf the Thursday the Lunar Racing Club match. My favorite one lately has been the slapdash, and we don't even know what flags will be in that until they're generated, like half an hour before the race. It's fun to explore that design space to see how quickly you may have to adapt strategies on the fly. So right now, yeah, Sunday slapdash is my favorite for sure.
What is it about that catches you so much right now? What is it about that interests you so greatly?
Just the surprise aspect of it,
Ah.
and
Mhm.
the fact that every all the others, you kind of have an idea what you're going in expecting, but you get put on that timer. You have this long to study what you're going to be dealing with, and yeah, I know I talked earlier about how real-time strategy games are not my favorite because of that,
Mhm.
but I feel like just because of my knowledge base with free enterprise, I have a pretty good idea of what I'm looking at, what to consider, what important parts to target in the
Sure.
randomized flag set,
Mhm.
and yeah. So it's both the element of surprise, the variety, and admittedly sometimes just how absurdly rude they can be to us.
That's fair. That's fair. Is there any tech that you find yourself coming back and working on whenever you play seeds on your own, or whenever you're racing or whatever? Is there anything that you find yourself keep coming back to work on your style of play in order to become more competitive?
Oh, absolutely inventory management. Like that's one of those things that there is more time in a seed to manage that than you may expect. Both in terms of keeping a mental track of what equipment you have, what equipment you may need, what items you've not seen yet, and keeping everything sorted and in order for when you need it. Uh, Keeping in mind when like crumble animations are a great time to go in, rearrange any junk you're not going to use or you're just going to end up selling, move to the bottom. Stuff you may want in your next combat, move to the top. And cross-referencing with that, there's also plinking tech where you get double inputs on certain things, and knowing the proper time to use that to scroll through your menus as quickly as possible and get those inputs in.
Right.
Uh, it may not save a lot of time, but when you have a community of racers who've gotten as strong as the free enterprise community has, you have to hone those skills, or you're just bleeding time to your opponents.
Yep. 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 And is there a specific kind of tech that you feel that you need the most work on?
That's an excellent question, and one that I wish I had a good answer to. Because if I had a good answer, I would work on it.
Does
uh,
it end up kind of being I get into the moment and oh, I did that badly, so the next time I'm going to focus on that?
it's
Or
It's not even that. It kind of depends on the flag set I'm playing at the time. Because one of the things that I may be inclined to do is over prepare, over loot, do things like that. Uh, but again, depending on the flag set, you may be in a situation where if you don't take those preparations, you're in a lot of trouble.
right.
So it really just depends on the flag set at hand. And, eventually when another tournament comes up, whatever is required, I will whatever distinguishes it from just, general play, our community races, our pickup clubs, whenever we know what that's going to be, that's when I'll drill down, analyze what I need to improve at that flag set, and that's what I'll work on because it's really quite a bit flag set specific.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Everything ends up being a little bit situational.
Yeah.
So now we're sort of in a bit of a wrap up mode here. We talked a lot about free enterprise. Talk a little bit about um, about some specifics about preferences for enterprise. For example, what is your least favorite key item check that isn't the package?
Oh, I mean, okay. So we're gonna go back to the two different brains I have. The one I have for playing casually, and the one I have for racing. If it's for racing, oh, it's the Twin Harp, hands down. It
Twin.
is the longest, slowest check for the reward, and if you don't have a source of exit, it's even more onerous. So in a racing context, I hate making the check. In a casual context, I also hate making the check. because I get to torment my viewers with it, and then we go play it. We go find the twin harp, and we play it after the seed is over. Uh, but it's really fun to tease people with it. As far as the actual content of the twin harp, I love it. The new songs, Calamity, has been hitting it out of the park
Oh,
with everyone I've heard.
mhm.
I love the twin harp. It's one of my favorite things about Free Enterprise. But the check is it's a little awkward to me.
Yeah, so it's out of the way. You have to ride a bird to get there. It's yeah, it's annoying. It's
Yeah.
annoying.
I do see Dart Jonas asking in the chat, Twin Harp worse than Sealed Cave. Sealed Cave, if the item is garbage, I hit my reset button. Uh, if the item in Twin Harp Cave, in Cave Magnus is garbage, I'm taking it as a trophy of our first encounter. I'm going full Gobez on the Dark Elf, and I'm taking its treasure. The Twin Harp loot is my Rosa in that situation.
Ah, yes. Ah, yes. All right, and on the flip side, what is your favorite sneaky check to make?
Well, it alternates. It is either it is keyless tower, if I don't
Okay.
have the tower key, which is really fun. Because the boss up there, if it gives you junk, you can usually just reset back to the bottom. It's a slow spot with very low magic attack, which is pretty nice.
Mhm.
Physical bosses there you have to look out for, but it also gives hefty XP for that point in the game, like 26,000 and change.
Yeah.
Huge influx if you don't have another good grind option.
Mhm.
But the real sneaky one I've become a big fan of lately is the Penguinator special, but not late in the game. Penguinator kind of coined the doing the tower cannon room without the upper check later in seeds and making that gamble. What I've taken to doing is if I get a really early combo, magma key and tower key, I like going in and doing the Penguinator special because that's a like a 600 HP boss,
Right.
usually pretty easy. And if you get an important key item, a darkness crystal, an earth crystal to open the treasury and get more characters, you can
That's
blow the seed wide open in a
that's
way that
interesting.
a lot of people are going to try to wait and single dip it. So if you're willing to gamble on the double dip, you can just blast everything out of the water, and it's pretty fun.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Fade Antlion, yes or no?
Oh, never, never. Nope. That just ain't me. That
Yeah, yeah.
requires an amount of courage beyond what I possess.
And what's your favorite free enterprise like flag? Like just straight up flag.
Ooh. Hold on. Let me go to the make page.
Yeah, yeah, I know. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling.
Well, that's a good one, Hawk Laser. While you're
Honestly,
scrolling,
I
favorite
I
unconventional grind.
oh, okay. Well, okay. Well, with the flag, honestly, I love S cabins. I like saying
Okay,
whatever you're using to to kill your enemies, you have to find it.
okay.
So, oh yeah, I'm not gonna say Fab. Fab is the best flag. Fight me. Uh, but I do love S cabins. I love just being put in that situation. And I've lost races that I had with people that were on that kind of Catalyte flag set because I didn't find an important item that made everyone else's life easier. I still love the flag. I
Mhm.
think it's fun to be able to, especially with the advent of starter kits, you can
Oh,
just
yes.
fade every shop and you try to budget, your 2 Starvels you got so you don't lose terribly. Um, so probably S cabins. Oh, hey, I'll let you shout out that raid, then I'll tell you my favorite
Oh,
unconventional
Jenica
grind.
Strife, thank you for the raid. Thank you for the raid, and welcome to the wrap up of this particular interview with Invenerable. Welcome everyone from Jenica's stream. Yeah, you were about to say favorite unconventional grind.
Oh yeah, and this is one that like, honestly we hadn't seen a lot of, but I started doing a little bit during the Fabul Gauntlet. And this is another situation where if you have an early Magma key and you have an early Luca key, you can invest in a couple extra star veils, reflect a trapdoor's disrupt back at it, and get another quick infusion of XP.
Mm,
Just when we hit the part of the when we switched from Swiss to brackets, and you could no longer reliably find sirens, that's a great way to get any team online as soon as you get underground, or even if you just have a single character that really needs it, that can be the one that you prioritize keeping alive in that fight. They get the XP infusion. not as quick as the good old making 1,000 eggs,
Mhm.
but it was a cheeky little thing that I was proud to pull off in a few races.
All right, so you've definitely given us a wonderful interview here in Venerable. It's
Well, you've
been
been a wonderful interviewer, Muppets.
it's been fantastic. I've had a blast. Uh, Now we're going to do a little bit of a rapid fire end questions. I've got a series of questions. Just first thing off the top of your head. Least favorite two starting characters in FE.
Ooh, Young and can it be the same character if you have a double character start?
Yang
No,
and
no.
Yang.
I would say Yang and Yang, but if we have to have variety, I will say Yang and Dark Knight Cecil, actually.
Okay. Yang and DKC. Okay.
Yeah.
If Edward didn't have a harp, what else would he play?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, the 3D animations always have him with a lute, but I think he would be pretty cool with a oh, what's the word for it? It's the something theremin. Theremin.
Theremin?
Eddie is a big enough nerd to where he would absolutely love to play a theremin.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. So, favorite game of all time?
Ooh, oh, ah, I mean, it's Final Fantasy IV.
Yeah.
Just I can't. I was gonna try to come up with something funny to say, but let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Favorite. I may not think it's the best game of all time, but it is my favorite.
Yeah. Best wasn't the. Yep. It's all about favorite. Which bosses in FF4 would make the best parents?
Oh,
We're getting
I
silly, Inven. We're getting silly.
I mean, I would say. Can I say who would be the worst parents?
Actually, yes. We'll go with that. Who are the worst parents?
Leviathan is a garbage dad. Hi, I'm gonna be your surrogate father. Let me kill everyone you're friends with. What? Sorry. Uh, and I'll give one best parent. I actually think that Baigen would be a really good parent, just because like the snake arms, they can kind of operate on their own and be like, okay, this arm I'm gonna disconnect. It's gonna go, pour you a nice glass of juice. This one's gonna, rock your cradle back and forth, whatever. Just having all the moving parts. So worst parent Leviathan, best parent Baigen.
Okay. I got it. I got it. Which town in FF4 would you like to live in?
Oh, okay, so let's go down the list. It can't be Agert, too many earthquakes. Mystidia, you try to go, pick up someone, out on the town. You're like, hey, can I buy you a drink? And they're like, let me buy you one. And then you're a pig asleep in the grass. No, thank you. Dating scene too harsh in Mystidia. Uh, Fabul, I don't think I can rock the shaved head look. Kaipo, Kaipo. No, we know it's Troya. It's Troya.
It's
Troya's the
Troya.
best.
Yeah.
You have all these wonderful nature trails. You have flowing water. You have cute little baby chocobos. You have a pub with crazy old coots. Telling stories about fighting imps. God, Troya's the best. You can swim. You can sunbathe. What's not to like?
I love it. I love it. And I had a feeling you were going to say Troya. So, what other game, if there is another game, would you like to see get the FE style randomizer treatment?
Honestly, I even though like I don't know enough about the game to dive into it, I am pretty excited about some of the work that's been going on with Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
Because Beyond Chaos is fantastic if you want that kind of not vanilla, but not open world, like following the main storyline beats throughout a game and having that kind of randomization.
Hmm.
I like to compare it to the Lunarian Shuffle, and now Worlds Collide is kind of giving it the treatment that Free Enterprise did to Final Fantasy IV,
Yeah.
which I'm excited for all my FF6 fans who wanted that style of randomizer, and I
Oh,
hope they're
yes.
having a blast playing it.
Yeah, I hear good things about it. And finally, the question that I think everyone has burning in the back of their heads: what would Kane put on his pizza? Go.
Pineapple. But here's the thing, this is how he betrays everyone. He does only pineapple, extra pineapple. 'Cause
No
and that
cheese?
gets well, I mean, okay, cheese is a default element of a pizza. You have dough, you have sauce, you have cheese. But Kane is betraying everyone. The people who ate pineapple on pizza, there you go, it's all pineapple. But every person who is reasonable and likes pineapple on pizza likes it with some kind of salty pork product. Uh, and he betrays them by getting rid of that and just having the pineapple. So betrays both camps. You love to see it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming out and doing this, Invenerable. I hope you had a blast. I did, and I hope everyone else in chat really enjoyed it. Is there anything you would like to say in closing before we shuffle it off?
Oh no, just thank you so much for having me. It was I'm glad that the Lunarian News Network is active again. I'm excited to see what interviews you have set up in the coming weeks.
Oh, yes.
And just make sure everyone sticks around for the I know we're turning it over to Dave in a moment, but there is a race broadcast here tonight, so stick around, cheer the runners on. Uh, Free Enterprise is amazing, even if you're just playing it on your own. But watching and cheering on racers is such a delight. So I
It's
hope you all get to enjoy that tonight too. And thank you again, Muppets and Dave, for all your and Scala for all your hard work putting this together. Everyone who I don't know who helped, y'all are the greatest. And that's all I got. It's all you Muppets.
Thank you very much, Inven. Thank you. And guys, I'm going to turn it over now to Casual Geek Dave, who's going to be introducing the very next thing that's coming up. But thank you all very much for joining us for this interview. And there will be another one next week. So go ahead and stay tuned. And in the meantime, I'm going to take it over to Casual Geek Dave. Thank you all and good night.
Thank you so much, Muppets, and thank you so much, Envin, for agreeing to join us for our first broadcast here. And thank everybody else for joining us. And it's really a labor of love bringing this back, and I really appreciate everyone's support and enthusiasm. That's really appreciate it as we continue to keep doing this week over week. So I'm really excited to announce our guest for next week. If he's been interviewed on this channel, it's been very rare. I'm not even aware if he has. Next week we will be interviewing Boardface, the creator of Free Enterprise, here next week at 7:30. So I hope you'll join us with that. Immediately following this broadcast, we're going to tweet out on the Free Enterprise Twitter. So if you have any questions you would love to ask Board, we would be happy to ask them for you. So look out for that tweet and fill out a submission, and we'll be happy to ask your questions to Boardface here next week. So thank you so much, everyone, yet again for joining us for Muppets in Space and Invenerable. I'm Casual Geek Dave, and I hope everyone has a fantastic night.